Welcome back. So it doesn't matter what module you've got, I've picked the Vision to try and close the learning curve. I admit I've cheated a little because I have flown the Vision before, but this will work with any other module. I find the Vision, from my understanding, quite complicated, so we're going to go ahead and jump into this, but the method in which I show you should pretty much work with any other module. So it's up to you whether you've got this or a different module, but hang around and we'll show you how to learn it. So what I want to do first is we need to go in and make sure that the learning experience is comfortable, because you don't want to be screwing around with things while you're not sure how things work. So what you want to do is you want to go in and find a free flight or something with the maps available. If there is no free flight, what we're going to do is we're going to generate a mission, very quick mission, very easy, so you can get in and get comfortable with what's going on. So I've already created a mission, so this isn't the screen that you're presented with to begin with, but if you just go create a new mission, it'll bring you to this page. So select an aircraft, make sure that you select the module. You also want to change and drop it down somewhere. Make sure you're at a turning point and then pick player. As long as you're not, picking something like on ground, hot, or whatever, hot start, cold start, that's fine. Just set it as a turning point. Once you're in there, obviously something that I tell everyone, go in and set your controls, your basic controls that you need. So you'll set your flaps, trim, landing gear, that kind of thing. You could set it as you need it. Now, one thing, because I've already read through the manual, that I've noticed is there is no other button for flaps, because the flaps are tied to the gear. So when I said go through the manual and have a quick look through, if anything's glaring at you, anything you want to know, note it down, because that you'll have instances where there's no need to set the flap switch, because there is no flap switch, it's just tied to the gear. So we won't need to worry about that in the Vision. Any other module, hopefully something glaring will appear, and you can put that in or adjust to it. So what we've done here is just gone through the settings like I normally say that you have to do, because any new module will pre-populate those buttons. Generally it'll populate them with things that you don't need. So go through, change the pitch, remove the rudder as your pitch control if you have a rudder, that kind of thing. Clear it all up, make it all nice and sweet, and then just go for a fly. Now, I know the Vision as being straight and level fast, and you will get compressor stalls. So here I'm just testing out what's going on. So you'd hear bangs, it'd be like bam bam bam, and that's a compressor stall. So I've put the nose down to try and get that air coming through the compressor again. This is just footage of me that I took prior, because you'll notice in the previous video I put a little bit of footage at the end of what I was doing. So I'm climbing, just sussing out how it feels. But anyway, me just mucking about, seeing if I can lose control, doing that kind of thing. Now, one thing I have noticed with this aircraft that stood out to me that might not stand out to you if you're new is the autopilot is always on in this aircraft. It doesn't behave like an autopilot as you would know in a civilian aircraft, or the autopilot in the A10. Basically, the term autopilot in this aircraft is pretty much the flight control system. So that was one other thing that stood out to me. So when it comes to switching on the autopilot or anything like that, probably going to be under a different name. It's probably going to be a different process, but we will get to that at some point as we go through the manual. So this now is me just flying around looking for an airfield. And like I said before at the beginning, in the very early stages, the super green, you can just put your flaps down, slow down as much as you can, and come in at a 3-degree glide slope. And this here proves basically what I'm saying. So I'm just going out to visually, not with any kind of markers or anything, going out to the where I need to go, assuming, judging it by eye, and then coming into land. So at this point what I've done, because I haven't set it before, is I've gone, I need my landing gear. So I type in gear here, and I set the button as I need it. So as you need it, that's how you set it. That way you're not going to be overwhelmed with all the buttons and everything that you need in order to, control the aircraft and do what you need to do. Now, when I come into land, this will be one of those funny moments that was in the previous video. This is why we're doing this. It's not to do with, like wasting time or anything, but what you want to do is do the takeoff if you can, or start as a free flight, then come into land, because one of the things that's different with all the aircraft is the feel of the rudders and the toe brakes. So what we need to do, go for a bit of a fly, do the 3-degree glide slope, see how it feels when you're on the ground. Is it too much? Is it too little? Adjust the curves in the rudder, maybe the toe brakes. Now in this instance I had the toe brakes not inverted correctly, so as I'm landing my toe brakes are full on, which means that when I put my feet down, because they're inverted, I'm actually taking the brakes off. So this is why we do this, just to get comfortable, make sure that it feels good, because you don't want to be mucking around with all this complex stuff if your landings are going to be really uncomfortable. And here I wasn't sure whether the landing gear came out, because I'm still new to this. I haven't actually attempted a landing before in this aircraft. This is the first landing I've ever done in a Vision, and as you can see, the 3-degree glide slope, the speed, everything seems to be working perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The only issue is those pedals. So this basically confirms that my original video where I say, hey, come in at 3 degrees, do this, do that, works fine, works perfectly. But here, because my rudder pedals and toe brakes are all set incorrectly, it didn't work. So I'm sitting there on fire. And then from here I've gone into adjust controls. What am I doing? Let's have a quick look. Setting eject, because we need the eject. As I said, set it as you need it, and then that way you're not going to get overwhelmed with all the buttons. And here we go. Just going to pop out through the top here. Eventually. There we go. So by the looks of it, the ejection in a Vision is quite slow. So this is where I'm going through and adjusting the wheel brakes, making sure they're set correctly, and then going through and changing the axis around, because see, here you go to axis assign, axis tune, invert them, and then I've come back for a second try. Excuse me, and as you can see, this is much smoother. I haven't at this point actually adjusted the rudder curves, although that's what I'm recommending. As you do it, mess about with the rudder for a little bit, see if you can get it feeling nice, and go for a landing. So let's see if I'm successful, which I'm pretty sure I am. It's just very sloppy because those rudder axes haven't been tuned yet. great success. And the obligatory ejecting. And now, what are we doing here? Because this is pre-recorded, I've kind of lost myself where I'm up to. What have we done? We're going into the Vision, search, trim, setting trim. Always set your trim and make sure that the best buttons for the trim are set, because that's something that you do need. I didn't show that earlier because I did this afterwards. I didn't use the trim at all. It was all done by stick because mainly I'd be controlling it. We're not doing any straight and level flight, which if you want to do straight and level flight, you're going to need to set up the trim. And I've probably talked way too much through this, so it's taking a lot longer to get to the next point, but I've decided to remove all that prior narrative and narrate a new one. Oh, here we go. So now what we want to do is we want to go to the startup procedure. This is the next step. So now we've read through the manual a couple of times, we've gone for a fly, things are quite comfortable. We're going to go to the startup procedure and we're going to note this down or print it out or do whatever it is we need to do so that we've got a copy with us. That there will give us an insight into what major systems we need to learn, and these are the ones that we learn first, basically. That's the cue as to what we're doing. So when we go into the startup procedure, we'll note down any of these names like Huvudstrom. I hope I've said that correctly. And you know, the LT cran, the low pressure fuel valve, that kind of stuff. So we know what systems are the major ones essentially in the aircraft. And we'll go back through the manual, have a look for those names, have a bit of a read, and then find what instruments they are, because some of them might have a little instrument or notification on there. Read a little bit about it until we're somewhat comfortable with it, and that will give us a good, very solid starting point to begin with. After we do the startup procedure a couple of times and we kind of understand what's going on, we will then go to the takeoff procedure, because the takeoff procedure, lo and behold, is not the same as what I tell you, which is flaps all the way down and you power up and off you go. Yes, it works, but we're not doing it correctly. So once we've done the startup a couple of times, or we've at least written a list that will keep us up to date, like a checklist, and we're comfortable with it and we can return back to it, make any adjustments, whatever. Once we're comfortable with that, we'll move on to the takeoff procedure, and that is the next step of what we're going to add to it. Then we'll learn the landing procedure, and then from there it's onward and upward, and if you want to come with me for that adventure, I'm right here.